talk for a minute. I don't remember who said it, but there's a long-held belief that getting there is half the fun. And the SCA, and it stands for the SCA too. We've got a lot of new members right now. A lot of people who, because of COVID and because of the on-again, off-again, on-again start, that we're getting back into live events, in-person activities, and we're just now, as of this moment, creeping into the possibility of camping events for anyone who didn't make it to the Gulf Wars this year. There's a lot of people who don't know about the culture of just getting to an event. I think for me, for this, I think the best way to share these points is to just share some of the stories from my background so you can appreciate why getting there really is half the fun for some SCA events, for a lot of SCA events, and it should be that way. I remember one year we were going to a King's College. I say we, it was my fiance at the time. Actually, we might have just been boyfriend, girlfriend, but it was years ago. I've been married 20 years, so you can do the math on that. And we were going with some friends. We had my wife's, at the time, girlfriend's station wagon, so we were going to load up a few friends. And as I recall, it was Rhiannon was with us, now mistress at the time, relationship Rhiannon. And we had Etienne. So it might have been another person in the car. But so we piled in, and you get 4 or 5 SCAers. Now, of course, the back was loaded to the roof. I had no rear view mirror for that trip, but we drove from Moonshadow down to Steps, I believe it was that year. And probably a 4.5 hour drive plus a few stops. And first of all, just imagine 4 hours of some of the most amazing conversations you can come up with, because we come from vastly different backgrounds. Lilith and I were relatively new players. I think we'd been a couple of years at that point. Rhiannon was a grant level player who'd been in a number of years and was working very, very hard towards, that was one of the earlier pushes to make Laurel. So I remember she was doing a lot of ANS activities. And Etienne, at the time, again, another grant level player, was, and still is today, one of the stalwart cornerstones of voice heraldry and ceremonial heraldry in the north of Onsteora. So I was interested in heraldry. My wife was interested in arts and sciences. We all loved to talk. We all had a pretty broad, each of us had a very broad but not necessarily overlapping knowledge base of history. So we all loaded up. I think I took a half day that Friday. We loaded up. We left around 3 or 4 o'clock, I guess. And we drove for 4 hours. I remember there was a gas station stop, and I think we stopped for dinner, like Subway or something. So just getting down there, first of all, there was loading up the car, which is always an adventure. And then we drove all the way down. And just side-splitting fun stories, questions about how things worked in the SCA that I didn't know about, questions about history that I didn't know about. And then, now this is why the story is really fun. So we pull up, we were staying at a friend's place. We got there Friday night, we were staying at a friend's place. A friend of Rhiannon's, in fact. I did not know this person. So there was the meeting this person for the first time. It was actually her and her husband, lovely couple. Absolutely amazing conversations there as well. But we were in the house about, I guess, maybe 20 minutes. And someone turns on the TV, I think they were just checking the news, and they go, "Hey, isn't that where class is tomorrow?" We all go into the living room, we look down, and there's the local news showing one of the buildings on this college campus. And there's smoke pouring out every window. The building's on fire. And we were all like, um, yeah, that is where the event's supposed to be tomorrow. And we all just kind of stood there for a minute, like, the site burning down is not on the normal checklist of things you prepare for in the SCA. And I remember Etienne. Now, keep in mind, Etienne's name may be French, but he plays a Norman. So his persona's history is Viking. He's ostensibly first or second generation descendant from actual Viking raiders that would have originally settled Normandy. And Etienne just calmly says, "Oh, I see my cousins beat us here." um, and we all talked about it because I think about an hour later, maybe 2 hours later, we talked for a little bit. About 2 hours later, an email went out, and the autocrats, of course, we had to scramble. We had to find another place, and I think they wound up having it in the back of a like a hardware store or something. Like there was extra space, and the hardware store was closed that day. They managed to scrape something up. God bless them, but we read about where it was and some of the restrictions because I think they said some of the classes were being canceled because there just wasn't space. They had to make accommodations, and we all talked about it. And my wife, or girlfriend at the time, and I, and Rhiannon and Etienne, we just kind of decided that it with the classes that weren't going to be happening, some of which we wanted to attend, and where this was going to be, and a couple other logistical issues, it probably just something we didn't want to go to. So suddenly, with a free weekend, we looked at our hosts, and we kind of looked at each other, and the host said, "Well, how'd you like to go have fun tomorrow?" And we spent the whole next day driving around the city and visiting museums and going shopping and getting lost a few times. This was before GPS was on every smartphone. And just had an absolute blast. I can't remember if we ate out or ordered in, but I remember dinner was just loads of conversation. And even though we never did make it to an event, years later when I ran into that same couple traveling south and staying at their house coincidentally, they were, they remembered us, and the friendship just picked up, even though it was years later, and I was now married, and they had a kid, and all of that. We all, we just kind of picked up where we left off, and the conversations were still there, and it was still fun, and it was still engaging. So it was this, it was just this really cool opportunity to meet people. Now, even though there wasn't an event, understand, even if the event had gone on, that wouldn't have eclipsed or done away with or minimized what had already happened getting down there. And it wouldn't have changed all of the conversation at dinner on Friday night, or the event would have been over around dinner time anyway Saturday, so we still would have wound up probably going and hanging out with that same couple, and all of us going out to dinner or ordering in or something. So then Sunday rolled around, and we packed up, having never put on garb for the whole weekend, just street clothes, and wandering around the city like a bunch of tourists. And we went back home. And while it wasn't actually an SCA event, it's still, some of the things said there, some of the friendships made there, did have a lasting impact on my SCA career for years to come. Another really good example was 8 years ago, about this month, when I went back to Gulf Wars. It was Gulf 23, I believe. Yes, Gulf 23. No, Gulf 24. We just had 30. So, or 32. I can't remember, to tell you the truth. But it was my first time back to Gulf in a while, and as much as we make plans about Gulf, as much as we talk about going to this big war and camping there and a whole week of activities, I'm going to tell you, getting there when you live in Oklahoma, that's quite the haul. That's a campaign by itself. And 5 of us piled into my van that time. This time I was the oldest person in the van. I was the responsible adult. Still not sure how I feel about that title, but you get the idea. And we drove nonstop from Stillwater all the way down to Lumberton, Mississippi. I think there were 8 stops involved between gas and bathroom breaks. We had so much stuff in the car that I remember Wolf She was riding in the way back. She was on the fifth seat, third row back in the van. Some of the tent stuff had kind of, all the soft stuff had kind of fallen over. So all we saw of Wolf the whole trip was this little hole sticking out through the cargo where she'd kind of tucked her chin so she could breathe. And she was just snug as a bug in a rug back there. And she'd occasionally answer questions and check on us. But she's a hardy traveler. And that's how we made it to Gulf, and then that's how we made it back. We loaded that van down to the point the shocks almost compressed out. I remember an event I went to where my wife couldn't make it, so Angus from Namron, he said, "Hey, I'd like to go." I'm like, okay, cool. And we found Crash Space, and this was a SCA couple who we didn't know, we'd never met. We posted on an email list saying, is there anyone who can put up two guys traveling down to this event? And we got a reply back, and it was a husband and wife going, yeah, we'd love to host you, come on down. So, okay, excellent. And Angus and I hopped into my car Friday afternoon after work, and I didn't really know Angus that well at the time. We just kind of bumped into each other. He and his wife, of course, were always very, very nice to me when I was site heralding events, but I just hadn't had a chance to talk to him a lot. There wasn't a lot of common ground between us, so I didn't really know what I was getting into. It was kind of a risk on, a little bit of a social risk on that one. But we started talking. Oh my God, that was the most raucous, fun 4 hours I'd had in close to 6 months at that point. He is just a hoot to talk with. Excellent. I loved his sense of humor. I loved his taste in movies. Some great SCA stories. Oh my God, that was such a blast. And we got there. And of course, this is all pre-SCA, or this is all pre-SCA. This is all pre-GPS. So we are, it was a little bit of which turn are we supposed to take to get there. We finally found this house. It was way late. I think we were 2 hours. No, we were about an hour after we were supposed to be there. God bless them. The couple that was waiting for us met us with open arms and offers of food and drink and just the most wonderful hospitality. We talked for, I think, about half an hour before Angus and I were both like, okay, we need to sleep if we want to make the event in the morning. And then, not to be outdone, that was Friday night. Saturday we were at the event, and it was a collegium. We had a blast there. It was a lot of fun. And then someone said, hey, we're going for sushi. I love sushi. And I said, oh, where are you going? And they said, well, you probably can't go. And I go, why not? And they go, well, it's about 3 hours away. I looked at Angus. Angus looked at me. And Angus goes, I'm down. And I looked down like, I'm down. So yeah, we drove in the opposite direction of the house we were staying, by the way. The house was about a half hour the other direction. So we drove, actually I think it was about 2 hours, excuse me. We drove 2 hours to this sushi restaurant and had some great sushi. Amazing conversation. Oh my God, the people that were there, again, just amazing conversation, good humor, just not wild, no alcohol involved, just a lot of people having really, really good conversation. And then we were done. It was 10:30 when we walked out of there, and I looked at Angus and I'm like, I'm good to drive, you good to navigate? And he laughed and he goes, I'm ready. And we drove 2.5 hours the other way. So we showed up at this poor house at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I'm really expecting to get chewed out by the couple, because I mean, they're staying up for us. And we get there, we knock on the door, and the door flies open, and the first thing the woman says, the wife says, is, you guys are all right, excellent, come on in. And it was like another 30 minutes of conversation. Oh my God, it was such a hoot. And we all were, at that point, we were really tired, so it wasn't like we could have stayed up till 2 in the morning talking. Well, we almost were up till 2. We couldn't have stayed up too much longer talking. But it was just a great conversation. And it was a lot of fun. And coincidentally now, going back to that Gulf Wars I was telling you about, there's a bit of an adventure there, but that side point, that same couple, I ran into them at that Gulf Wars. They had traveled there, and I bumped into them at gate. And she was thrilled just to see me, just to see someone that random encounter from years before, to see them again, see they're doing well. And I was like, oh my God, you guys are here. It's so good to see you. And that was part of what made that trip, that little part right there was part of what made that golf so special, with those random encounters of people I already knew, already had that connection with. It was just a fun way of going, oh, it's good to connect with you again. Getting to events is tough. It is. It's going to get tougher right now. Gas prices are not doing anyone any favors. Part of SCA culture used to be that community of, hey, who's available for crash space? Or who wants to ride down with me? We'll split gas. How many people can we fit in this car? How much cargo can I stuff in the back? How big of a rooftop carrier can I fit so we can use the last two seats? What do you mean you don't fit? There are 3 seat belts back there. 3 of you will fit. I've had all these conversations, all of them. 4 hours in a van with 3 people on a seat that shouldn't have fit 2 of us. It was a miserable seating condition, but I still love the conversation. It was worth every second of it. Crashing at a total stranger's house and finding out about their SCA journey, finding out about their real life journey, finding out who they are in real life sometimes. It's an amazing opportunity. Some of the breakfasts that we were cooked, some of these couples, some of these people, some of these individuals, I mean, and it's not just hospitality. These people are really good cooks. Some of these people really enjoy the opportunity to host friends and strangers. I mean, this is part of what they do. This is part of how they live their life, is making other people happy that way. It's an adventure. It is. And that is totally separate. This is totally independent of the whole act of checking in at gate and doing an SCA event. So, do you want to know something about SCA culture? That's something right there, is that community that lets you say, how many people can we fit in this car? How much cargo can we latch down on top? How far can we drive in one night? And whose house are we staying at? So we can get up in the morning halfway rested and do this event. I miss it sometimes, and I want to get back to it. And maybe my life will let me. It's nothing against the culture. Just being a working man and having a family tends to point your directions other ways. But for those of you who are just discovering the SCA, or those of you who are just discovering eventing, keep that in mind. Keep in mind that that is part of the culture, and there are people out there who want to sponsor, who want to have you over, who want to be that person to say, you know, there's a cot in the corner, here's some blankets, get some sleep, I'll have some breakfast for you in the morning. Because those are the memories of some decades for me. But I could ramble forever. Safe travels. That's the message here. Safe and wonderful, adventurous travels, because that, getting to the event sometimes, is the amazing part. It's the part that helps make some events what they are. But until then, I will see you at the next event. But until then, goodbye and God bless.